welcome to the Art of Being Human. We've been talking about young children in the preschool age and in the toddler age and how they learn and how they grow. And today I want to spend some time on helping them to develop a positive self-concept. And this is very important to them. You want to have your children have a good self-concept. You want them to feel good about themselves. They're learning, they're growing. It's important that they feel good about themselves. Otherwise, they're just going to turn out and be depressed and sullen and kind of withdraw, and there's no sense in that. These young children generally love to learn and love to grow and love to do new things and learn new things. So self-concept is important. And we don't have to worry about them being arrogant. There's a whole school of thought for both adults and children that if you let them feel good about themselves, they're going to be arrogant. They're going to say, oh, look at me, I'm the best. That's not the case. I think for mental health purposes, everybody needs to know what they're good at. Everybody needs to know what gifts they have, and they need to feel good about that, and they need to use their gifts appropriately. Why wouldn't that be true of children as well as adults? So this is what I want to talk about today. There's got to be a balance between a positive self-concept and accepting the fact that you are valuable and you are worthy without becoming arrogant. And I don't think that most people who do well, who know that they do well, they're not arrogant people. So this is something that you don't have to worry about it. So by definition, what is self-concept? Well, self-concept is how you feel about yourself. It can be positive, it can be negative, it can be somewhere in between. A positive self-concept is best for mental health. So I'm going to just kind of narrow this down a little bit. A positive self-concept, it's a combination of how you feel about yourself and how you think other people think about you. You know, we base our concept of ourselves based upon what we think others think of us. And so therefore, it's not just what I think about me, but what I think other people think about me that's important. We have to keep that in mind. Now, most babies, and they're growing up in healthy homes, they get a lot of attention, a lot of a positive attention, and it's going to be natural for them to feel good about themselves. And when they fall, you pick them up. And when they need help, you just help them. And so that's going to be the natural progression, that they're going to value themselves and they're going to learn. And of course, they can't verbalize this. They don't have any words to verbalize this. But they're going to say, you know, I'm a very good person. I know I can do things and so forth and so on. And we do take our clues from other people in terms of how we feel about ourselves. We feel that our worth is based on what other people think of us. If I'm told that I'm a good child all through my life, as long as I'm a child, I'm going to feel good about myself. So I'm taking my clue about what my worth is from what other people say about me. Not just my parents, but other people too. Now, this is another factor that you need to be aware of in the development of self-concept. Your worth does not depend upon your accomplishments. You can't judge a person as good or bad according to what they accomplish. You have to have a self-concept that's based on who you are. I think I'm a good person because I am. I love my child because the child is, and the child belongs to me, and I love the child, and the child loves me. So your personal contributions are not what should determine whether you are good or whether you're not good, whether you're worthy or whether you're not worthy. So the parents, rightly so, want to have their children do the best they can. And so they kind of get at them. You could have got an A, you got a B, how come? Why aren't you working harder? Why aren't you getting higher grades? All of this kind of thing. But actually, that can have a very negative impact on a child. And we just challenge children to do well. But what happens if a child can't do well? What if the child is autistic? What if the child has a bad day? What if a child flunks a test? So what do you think about that? If they base their worth on their accomplishments and they feel that their accomplishments are not living up to what they should be, then they start to get angry at themselves and they start to doubt their worth, and then that becomes depression. Depression is basically anger turned inward. So what they're going to do is they're going to feel, I'm not worth anything. Now, it's just one small step from I'm not worthy to I am not worthy as a person, a total person. It's just that one step from I made a mistake to I am a mistake. And if you can catch that difference, that's going to be important. Because if you feel that you are a mistake and you can't do anything right, then you're gonna lose your worth. That's what demeaning people do. If you demean a person, they gradually think that then they don't have any worth. What does this turn into? It turns into helplessness, it turns into despair, and eventually, for very bright children, it can turn into suicide, because they feel if they're a disappointment to themselves and they're a disappointment to their parents, then what's going to happen? Well, then they're not worth anything. They lose their sense of self-worth, and that can turn inward to depression, and then it can turn into suicidal thoughts. This is why you have occasionally a very bright child killing themselves. I know this probably sounds like I'm overstating the case, but I'm not overstating the case because I've seen it happen. A brilliant child doing well, all A's, and what does the parents do? You're wonderful, you're getting all A's, you're our pride and your joy, and suddenly they miss something. And when they miss something, the grade goes down. And then they feel like they've been a disappointment. They let their parents down, they let their relatives down, they let their friends down, they let their teachers down. So that means they're not a worthy person after all. And if they incorporate that into their self-concept, they can become so depressed about that they can kill themselves. I've seen it happen. And that's tragic. And what people say is, oh, they had everything to live for. Why would they choose to kill themselves when they have everything to live for? Well, because they see themselves slipping. And then they're saying, I don't have everything to live for. I'm not the person people think I am. And if I'm not the person that people think I am, what am I worth anyway? So I consider this discussion on self-concept of young children to be critical. And I think the thing we have to do is praise them when they do good work, encourage them to do good work, and even if you think they're wasting their time, you might be a little strict about it, but you also have to let them know that if anything happens, they're still your child, and you're still going to love them, and there's no mistake that they can't recover from. You know, we live from one activity to another activity, especially these kids. They have so much to do. Their schedules are so crowded. They hardly have time to think. They go through their classes, and when they finish their classes, that's the activities that they have after the classes are over. And then when that happens, you know, they've got the football, they've got the soccer, they've got the band, the rehearsal, they've got the cheerleaders, and going to school is a full-time job. Now, I don't know about you, I've had full-time jobs all my life, but there comes a time when you have to take a break. If a child is going to school from, let's say, 8:30 to 3, that's a full-time job. School is their full-time job. And then after that, they go home and they have other things to do, the clubs, the practices, all the things they're involved with, and that adds to it a full-time job. Well, there comes a time when it's just too much. They can't keep up with everything. And so therefore, you have to let them know that there may be a time when they may not do everything perfectly, and that's not the end of the world. You have to let them know that you have wiggle room for that. You don't have to be perfect all the time. I had a friend of mine, I saw her at the movies once, this is a few years ago, and she had a little 6-year-old daughter with her, a very well-behaved, very beautiful child. And I complimented her on this child. She is so pretty, she is so nice, she is so good. And she says, well, she's not perfect yet. She's only 6 years old. And I wanted to tell her, you know, she's never going to be perfect. She's 6-year-old or 26 or 105. She's never going to be perfect because nobody is. So give her room to make a mistake and don't be too upset about it. What if you had a child, like a young girl, she goes off to college, she's brilliant, she's got all kinds of scholarships, her parents are proud of her, and she gets pregnant and leaves school? It is a disappointment, but should it ruin her life? You know, most mistakes are recoverable. She can go to school later. She can go to a different campus. You can work around any mistake that a person makes because we're all prone to making mistakes. It's not just the adults and it's not just little kids. We all make mistakes. So we need to encourage children to do the best they can when they're young, getting back to children. Let them make their mistakes. Let them grow from their mistakes because they're not going to be perfect. No one's self-concept should be based anyway on what you can do. Your self-concept should not be based on your accomplishments, because what happens is if the accomplishments fail, if you no longer have new accomplishments, then what's going to happen is you're going to feel so bad about yourself that your self-concept fails. So your self-concept should be based on who you are, not what you do. And this is a critical thing. And even for children, when you're dealing with young children, you love them because they are. You know, you're going to have to raise them, and they're going to be small and tiny for a long time. You're going to have to take total care of them. You love them just as much then. You don't love them because they can do something for you, because at a tiny age they can't do anything for you. It's a case of you love them because they are, and they are yours. Now I'm going to tell you a story. I have used this sometimes in sermons, but I think it's important, so I'm going to use it here. This is a true story about a little boy. He was about 5 years old, and he went to his father, who's a very famous Christian writer, one of the best Christian writers I've ever read. And he said, "Dad, why do you love me?" And his father thought for a minute and said, "Well, you do so well. You're learning, you're growing, and then you're really doing so well. I'm very proud of you." And the child went away disappointed, and the father realized that he had given him the wrong answer. So he called him back and he said, "Son, you want to know why I love you? I love you because you're mine. You belong to me. You are my son, and I love you because you belong to me." And the child went away, and he was satisfied and smiling, and that was the right answer. How did he know? Because what the child needed to find out, and what the child kind of knew, but he needed to have it confirmed, is that his father's love for him was not based upon his accomplishments as a child. His father's love for him was based on a relationship. And don't we all, whatever we're involved with, it always starts with a relationship. The relationship trumps everything else. So with your child, you need to understand that you love your child unconditionally. Now, what's the difference between unconditional love and conditional love? Well, unconditional love means I'm going to love you no matter what. It doesn't matter how good you are, how bad you are, what you accomplish, what you don't accomplish. I'm going to love you just because you are. And this is the way it is for God's love for us. It's unconditional love. There's nothing you can do to earn it, but there's nothing that you can do also that can stop it. Conditional love is based upon I love you as long as you do something for me. As long as you can do something for me, then I love you. If you can't do what I want you to do for me, then my love will gradually fade away. That's conditional love. It's based upon what you can do for another person. And if you stop doing that for another person, the love goes away. Unconditional love, the love will always be there no matter what. And that's the way it should be. It should be for parents, for children, for spouses, for each other. You know, so at any rate, supposing some people get married because they see, and I know I'm taking this out of the realm of childhood, but I'm doing it deliberately. I've planned for this. Sometimes people get married because the spouse that they marry can meet a need. So they're basing their marriage on the fact that their needs will be met. It's not a good way to get married. To get married, you should get married for only one reason, is that you love the other person. Because if the need is there and the person fulfills the need and then you're happy, what happens if they can't fulfill the need anymore? Things change. And what happens with marriages is that the person who met the need may not want to do it anymore. Or the person that he wanted to help or she wanted to help meet the needs doesn't want that help anymore. There are people who get married because they have needs that they want their spouse to fulfill. There are other people who need to be needed, and so they're happy as long as they need to be needed and they can serve somebody else. Well, you put them together, for a while it works because a person who needs to have help has married a person who wants to give help, and that is all right for a while. But as the people mature, and they will, in any marriage a person will mature, the person who's giving on all the help doesn't want to be a caregiver anymore. The person who's receiving on the help doesn't want to have any help anymore. They want to be independent. So the reason for the marriage is invalid, and the marriage fails. So the only reason to get married is that you love the person and the person loves you, and whatever else happens, that love will always be there. You know, I had a college professor, when I was in college, one of my colleagues, he said he got married, and he had always been single and enjoyed a single life, and then he married somebody, and he was very happy, and I joked with him about it. I says, how are you going to give up all your freedom for marriage? He said, Pat, I'm more free than I've ever been in my life, because if I want to do something, she supports me. If she wants to do something, I support her. We are totally free to engage in all the activities we want to engage in, and we support each other. I'm not hampered by getting married. I'm even more free than I was before because I have somebody I can rely upon to help me, and she has somebody to rely upon to help her, namely me. And so you see, the critical part of helping children to develop self-concept at a young age is the fact that they need to know who they are. They need to know that they can get help when they need to. They need to know you're going to love them no matter what they're involved with. And so you praise them when you can, you help them and encourage them when you can, but you can't control their every movement. You can't control everything that they do, but you can love them no matter what. You know, what if somebody gets hurt in an accident and they can no longer walk and they happen to be your child? Now you have a totally different situation. They're not going to be able to have their profession anymore. You may become their caregiver, but since you love them, you do this in love. You see, now there's all kinds of situations that I could address that come up. But, you know, I don't want to get into that. I'm dealing right now with children, helping them to develop a self-concept. But if they have a good basis and they know that you love them, they will weather almost any storm no matter what, because they can return to you and you can help them, and they will appreciate that, and they will help you as well. So I'm going to close it here, and we'll continue with this next time. Please join me then.